wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. Can you hear me now? Is the microphone on? Welcome to the Cold Calling Podcast. I'm your host, Larry Long Jr., CEO. Remember, that's Chief Energy Officer of LLJR Enterprises. I'm super excited. We've got season 2, episode number 18, and we are ready to rock and roll. As a reminder, the Cold Calling Podcast is powered by my friends at Monster Connect. Rawr! Leveraging technology to deliver actual conversations for sellers out there. Imagine connecting with 8 to 12 decision makers every hour. Yes. And here at the Cold Calling Podcast, we're here to provide insights to help you, sellers, sales professionals, sales leaders, take your game to the next level. Now, hey, I'm honored to welcome today's guests in what we're going to call a Cold Calling Podcast First. We're focused on the topic of state of freight, selling 3PL services versus freight tech products and solutions. And hey, we've got joining us 3 esteemed guests, true logistics legends, as well as the legendary Brad Seaman, CEO of Monster Connect. Can you join me in giving a warm Cold Calling Podcast welcome to Brad out of Indianapolis? We've got Herbert Orellana joining us out of Phoenix. We've got Kevin Hill out of the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth. And we've got Matt, don't call him Long John Silver, also out of Phoenix, joining us. Let's give a warm round of applause to our guests today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think I got enough microphones to go around, but hey, great to see y'all. How's everyone feeling?
Doing pretty good. Great, Larry. Thanks for having us.
Walk-up music.
Ooh, I can feel the energy. I can feel the energy. So, hey, the way that we get things started on the Cold Calling Podcast is first what I call the who, the what, and the why. So we're going to go in order. We're going to go Matt leading off, Kevin next, Herbert next, and then Brad. Who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it? You're on the clock. You've got 90 seconds. Matt, the mic is all yours.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having us on. Thanks, everybody, for joining. So Matt Silver, Vice President of Partnerships with Greenscreens.ai. So we are predicting the cost to book a truck before the transaction happens. And we do that today to benefit the freight brokers in the industry moving into the shipper market in early next year. So exciting news about that. But hands down, up against any of the legacy or incumbent products in market for freight costs, we are the only one that is forward-looking and the only one that publishes a report card. So you can see how accurate we are, unlike everything else in market. And I don't think I hit 90 seconds, but I'll defer my time because I'm going to talk everybody's ear off here later.
It's all good, Matt, and I love that. Predictive. Ooh, you're looking into the future. I love that. We're going to pass it over to Kevin, Mr. Hill.
Yeah, my name's Kevin Hill, and I'm the founder of Brush Pass Research. And what we do is we supply the sales intel, contact information for everybody in the freight brokerage world, for those freight tech companies that are selling into freight brokerages. It's like your master CRM or your Rolodex that would take you years to build, all in 5 minutes.
Ooh, all in 5 minutes. You do all that in 5 minutes. I didn't know you were a magician, Kevin.
I am.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Herbert, I know we got a tennis legend. Herbert, the mic is all yours. Who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Yeah, Herbert Orellana over here, co-founder of Avanza Logistics. Long time ago, former load broker and also sales agent in the freight logistics industry, but now, dedicated to provide nearshoring staffing and BPO solutions to, dedicated to the logistics and freight tech industry. We help, 3PLs, freight brokerages and freight techs to staff up and scale up their operations, efficiently. And, coming from a first-hand experience perspective, we can definitely, match, some talent with, with the real core of job positions and companies' hiring needs.
Ooh, that's strong right there. We got three legends in the house. And speaking of legend, we got the legendary Brad Seaman coming in from Indianapolis. Who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it, Brad?
All right. So Brad Seaman, CEO of Monster Connect, and we provide a sales platform that's the fastest way for you to connect with your prospects. And I do this because, you know, being on the phone is really challenging. It gets harder and harder every year to get prospects on the phone. And, you know, as a sales leader, it was really hard to scale a large inside sales team that I ran. And I just started moving around pieces and parts, trying to figure out how I could get the most out of the best sellers that we had. And that ends up becoming what is Monster Connect today.
Wow. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm super excited to dive in and understand the state of freight. We're going to talk about the landscape, and we're going to go in reverse order. We're going to go with Herbert, Kevin, and then Matt. And any color that you have to add, Brad, the mic is all yours. I got enough mics to go around, but can you describe what's the current landscape of the logistics industry, and particularly focusing on what are some of those key differences? What are some of those key challenges in selling 3PL services versus freight tech solutions? Herbert, what you got for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this year we have heard the phrase freight recession, you know, a lot of times. I think like quietly enough. But, you know, even though with the current market conditions, 3PLs and freight techs, you know, they're still pushing hard, you know, to hit, you know, sales goals for this year. You know, when it comes to some of the, you know, like key differences between one and the others is that, you know, 3PLs and freight brokerages, they're literally, you know, sell transportation and logistics services. You know, they focus on transportation, warehousing, you know, air and ocean freight, and other similar, you know, services. And freight techs, I believe, you know, Matt Silver and Kevin Hill will be able to provide more details. But, you know, it's a lot about technology, you know, how technology it's now being used in logistics and transportation, you know, like automating processes and literally, you know, just facilitating the job, you know, less paperwork, you know, less like human work and more like efficient processes and automation.
I love that automation. We're gonna talk about it a little bit later. I am robot, but before we get there, what you got, Kevin? Thank you, Herbert.
You know, I'm gonna take it one step further. We're in a depression, not even a recession. It's a depression. It's about 20 months into it. So you had the pandemic where it was booming. It was booming. Everyone's at home buying stuff. Everything's on trucks, shipping around. That stopped. That stopped in early 2022. And since then, the rates have gone down. We have too many trucks on the road for the number of loads. And as freight brokers, we're trying to match those up. So we have a lot of supply. That means a lot more competition in selling, landing new customers, right? Shippers, their volumes are down, shipments are down. It's a depression out there. So it's hard to land new customers. You have to be ultra aggressive. Herbert's right. It's all about your competitive advantages, your differentiation. You leaning on technology and good data helps quite a bit, but it's always a cutthroat out there in the 3PL land. It's really bad right now because I would say it's a depression. We're going to see revenues down 40% in some cases, somewhere between 20 and 40% year over year at freight brokerages. So it's dicey.
Wow, Kevin, I appreciate you going a little bit deeper. And hold up, y'all. Hold up. Do y'all hear that? There's someone knocking at my door. Kevin, do you know who's knocking at my door?
The Doomsday Machine. I'm not sure.
It ain't DoorDash. It's opportunity. Yes. I love that you shared. We're going through a depression. It's tough. Things are getting tight. When it's tight, how do you get right? The opportunity is knocking. Who's ready to answer the door? Hey, Matt, I know you're ready to answer the door. Talk to me.
Absolutely. So Herbert and Kevin really set the stage nicely with what's happening both within the driver segment and the shipper segment. within the brokerage segment, the 3PL segment, there also is abundance. There was abundance coming out of the pandemic. Rates were great. Everybody was making hand over fist money. So we saw investors double down, right? A lot of brokerages took a lot more money, likely more than they needed, caused a little bit of bloat, we'll say, and little being hypothetical. And I'm trying to be sensitive to those that have fell victim to companies that overinvested in bringing in staff, overinvested in real estate. So we're seeing a lot of that wash out of the industry, just like we're seeing a lot of carriers, retract from the total available capacity, which is going to help supply and demand meet back together. But the opportunity is those that invest early, right? If you shore up your corporate structure, if you get your business operating sound in tough times, you're going to be in a better place to launch as things start to correct. And I think, Kevin, I'll look for you to like heads up, thumbs up, good or bad. Like, I think we're starting to see some small signs that things are going to get better, right? I think we're very much at the bottom of this long trough right now. We're seeing some signals in rates data showing that, rates are starting to tick up, single-digit percentage, but starting to tick up, and we'll take that as a good sign up against double-digit drops in the past. We're starting to see some of those load volumes not return to pandemic levels, right? I don't think we're going to see that soon, but if we get back to normal, and if some of us can remember what normal was 2-3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we're going to come out of this pretty all right. And at least those of us that are planning for it, those of us that have seen cycles before, right? Everything is a cycle. This is freight.
Yep.
We've been through it before. Maybe not as severe. We came from the very, very top, but it's survivable. And we're seeing a lot of our clients, a lot of mid-sized brokerages even really start to plan for what is next year going to look like, and how do we get ahead of that uptick in business volume.
Wow, Matt, I love that. So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm always going to go with the silver lining, right? That's not just my namesake, but I really do look at things this way. Herbert and I actually go way, way back, and I'm doing like the Brady Bunch point down to him. He and I have a history together at a freight brokerage many, many moons ago. And we went through good times. We went through bad times. We've seen it all before. Kevin, you outdate us in this industry. It is a cycle. Good times come, good times go, bad times come, and bad times go. We're going to survive it.
It's a cycle.
Much respect to our elder statesmen. Now, before we get to you, Brad, I want to let all of our viewers and our listeners, this is a perfect opportunity for you to ask. I've got a ton of questions in this little brain of mine, but this is a perfect opportunity to get any of your burning questions from Legends of Logistics. Go ahead in the chat. Get those Twitter fingers ready. Any questions that you have, we'll make sure that you answer them. Brad, I can see the gears turning in your head. What you got for us, Willis?
Well, some of them were questions. So, what do you guys feel like the impact of Convoy and Yellow closing their doors here in the last couple of months has made on the market?
I don't like what it's doing to maybe some of the interest in investors in coming into freight, but I'm a little bit of a pessimist because I've seen so many companies try to dive into investing in freight that I'm not convinced we need more. I think we have knowledgeable investors fueling some of this industry. Mm-hmm. Also, to Kevin's point about an abundance of capacity, the strong survive, and those that were over leveraged will not and cannot. Personally, and I don't know if it's a popular opinion or not, I was surprised at how long Yellow held out. I was really surprised to see them last as long as they did. I think it was well known, at least in the financial community, that they were in tough times for a very long time. Them hanging out for maybe a year longer than expected was a sign of the strength of the executive team that they put in place.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like as it pertains, it appeared that they basically were debt loaded, is what appeared the primary, the depressed market along with the overloaded debt created. Is it normal, what's the appropriate amount of debt that most 3PL providers carry? Is it a lot? Because it looked like you're laughing. So It must be a lot.
I might be again, like my experience in this industry is pretty unique in that I've actually only ever been involved in debt funded brokerage. I did build one from scratch, and 10 months in, we got acquired. But every company I've been with has been almost on the leading edge of debt finance. So my appetite for risk, my experience with it probably is unfair. Kevin might have a better pulse on like what's appropriate, what's average, what's sustainable even. Yeah,
it's a really good question.
I
I wish I had a better answer. It's a really good question. I know like working capital is always heavily financed, right? So you have factoring companies. It's, you're almost like a bank, right? You're paying out to carriers, waiting for your shippers to pay you, and that is the gross, right? So maybe a $3,000 load, you might make $300, $400, $500 on. So you're going to make that margin off of it, but you have a lot of cash coming in and out. So there's that financing. So if you land a $1 million a year or $1 million a month client, you have to go out and finance that usually for your working capital. Over the last few months, couple 3 years, there's been kind of creative financing that works with those receivables and payables, and then that's caught a lot of people off guard in this environment right now. In this, I'll call it depression, because very rarely do you see freight brokerages shut down, even in the down cycles, and we're seeing a rash of that right now, which is an anomaly in most cases.
Yeah, I think, when you look at the national data on startups or companies to start that succeed, I think logistics and freight brokerages are amongst the highest. So they have the least fail rate based on data that I saw. So if you're going to go out and start a company, you got one of the highest likelihoods of making some type of freight company work versus opening a bakery.
Well, I mean, if you put it in perspective, like, I'm not sure if I got the right number, but in the U.S., like, I think there's like at least 80% of the shipping is on over the road or some sort of logistics and transportation service, and that's just the domestic freight. So the market share is big, and every time a new company opens operations, eventually they will have something to ship, either to deliver or that they need, so I mean, definitely I think that's a trend that it's going to continue. But just like Matt and Kevin were saying, I think in the last 5 years there was like a boom of new investors and just saw an opportunity. They were like, there's a lot of money in this industry, let's just pile up this bunch of money into the industry and start funding all these companies, or start creating these companies without the proper knowledge or with the proper team behind that. And I think freight tech was a niche that had a lot of that, and all of a sudden, I mean, I'm surprised that someone didn't come up with flying trucks already, because you have seen it all on freight techs, I mean, so I think sometimes it's far from reality, rather than something realistic that you can actually like put together.
And I'll throw out a number here that is from Armstrong and Associates. They benchmarked the industry in 2019. The 3PL freight brokerage domestic transportation segment was around $89 billion a year, which is a big market. 2022 is $160 billion. It doubled in those 4 years, mostly because of the pandemic. So you can see that boom and bust coming together right there. And the last 4 years, it's just been a hot market. And started in the second half, or really the first half of 2022 into 2023, it has just reversed back to normalcy, as Matt was saying, and which is quite a shock for a lot of people who have overinvested, overfinanced, not really even overinvested, overfinanced, with debt financing, and rates are coming down, or they came down 25 to 40%. your pricing comes down, your debt's not coming down with it. And that's where we face the squeeze that we're going through right now.
Wow, great insights. And Herbert, I love your background as we embrace and we drive change. I'm curious what you got cooking up. I know you're a beast in the kitchen, but when it comes to technology and specifically tech integration, in what ways has the rise of digital solutions transformed the traditional model of logistics services? How has that impacted your sales strategy as well as the strategy as you look out across the industry? And if you want to throw in AI, I would love to hear your thoughts on the impact that AI has had on the industry.
Well, I mean, a little bit over 10 years ago when I was a load broker, like cool technology in freight was like posting loads online and getting inbound calls.
Like Craigslist.
You're right. Exactly.
Yeah,
that was awesome. You just like post a load and then you got like a call and be like, hey, I want to take your load. And that was great, and then obviously, TMS and the transportation management systems and all that. But now it's just crazy, what technology, has to offer in logistics. I mean, from 10 years ago to now, I mean, you see less like manual tenders, or like tenders via email, like shipment tenders. Now everything is automated through platforms or apps. Like you have an owner operator that can, like offer to a load, through an app, like from his cell phone, and then the sales agent can either accept or negotiate the load from his cell phone as well. So not to talk about, like pricing prediction and market forecasting and just a lot of stuff, like spot bidding, and just a lot of platforms. I mean, I'm sure that Matt loves this topic, but now you can like track loads online on platforms, like from your cell phone, from your PC, everywhere. So, I mean, no wonder why a lot of people is like just like working in logistics and have the freedom to travel around and be around. I think like technology has been offering a lot in this industry lately.
Well, 10 years ago, a fax machine was essential technology, right?
God.
You're faxing everything around.
You're right. Yeah.
We've come a long way. Kevin, anything to add? And then we'll come to you, Matt.
I know. I mean, Herbert, it's you have a lot of automation going back and forth, both in the back office and in the business process, booking and covering loads, onboarding new carriers, everything has just become much cleaner, right? You can go to an app and that carrier can get onboarded in a matter of a few clicks instead of faxing over a 20-page document that was just a beast and having it signed and faxed back and then going to the insurance and confirming the insurance with another fax to insurance. It took all day to do anything, but now everything is just pretty seamless. And then you get into the data, and Matt can really talk about this, about that market data you have to be really competitive, right? Because you have to price your loads right. And that's come so far in the last 10 years. It's amazing.
Yeah, looking back, 10, 15 years ago, I'm trying to think how long I've been doing this. I certainly had a full head of hair when I started, but, back then, we actually had like hardware issues, right? Kevin mentioned the fax machines. I still know offices that have those. But I remember, the issue that we would have connecting to drivers, whether it was email communication, text message, whatever. We had drivers that legitimately did not have smartphones, right? We're talking predating iPhones and how chaotic that segment of the industry was. And, building from that, right? When Herbert and I were booking loads together, there was a time where, we had a bunch of dudes down the hall with pivot tables, and that was a competitive advantage because we knew how to extract a bunch of data into Excel. And then we had a team behind the scenes playing with numbers and then yelling out to the floor like, no, Long Beach to Phoenix is this price today, right? And that worked. That was our technology at the time. Fast forward, especially in the last 10 years, we've had a lot of investment also made, but a lot of technology, a lot of companies come to market promising to be this silver bullet, right? We're going to bring everybody onto one platform. We're going to fix freight. And it's never happened, right? Anybody who promises to do that much, it's a guaranteed failure. And what we're really seeing, especially the last 2 to 3 years, is this like really specialized startup segment. Companies, and of course I'm going to talk about our own, but other companies that are coming out doing one thing exceptionally well. Kevin mentioned onboarding. We have Highway as a new contributor in that segment, and they are very specifically doing identity validation. They do it extremely well, and that was a piece of the puzzle of larger companies a while ago. These guys are building a business around one feature, green screens. We do predictive pricing, one feature. There's a number of these companies coming out specializing in doing one thing at a certain level, but being very integratable, being very willing to play well with others, maybe even to the point of co-opetition or friendly competition with other companies. And that's really benefiting not just the brokerage space, the shipper space, but also the drivers, right? Drivers can now operate off a cell phone. You don't have to have a dispatcher. You don't need a back office. You truly can go lease a truck and get to work. You can find your freight for free on a number of the free load boards out there. You can have low cost or no cost accounting software behind you. You can provide visibility back to the freight broker or the shipper through any number of tracking technologies that are available now. The negotiation, like Herbert was talking about, right, happens via text, happens via email. Phone calls are still a thing, but they're becoming less and less important. And with the rise of fraud in the last 24 months, I think we're seeing a lot of not just freight brokers pull away from the load boards, usually at a demand of the shipper or the freight owner, right? They don't want their freight posted out there for everybody to see. But we're also seeing drivers withdraw from those segments because they're getting hit with fraud. They're having their MC or their identity stolen. So we're slowly migrating to the space where the transaction will be more secure and mitigated by smaller elements, smaller players in the total transaction. But overwhelmingly, each piece of that puzzle, each point of data will become more valid and vetted. And we'll move to these faster transaction cycles, I believe.
Matt, what's the alternative if you don't go to the load board? So if you're not posting on the load board, which is what's creating the significant piece of this fraud, correct?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So are you looking at private transactions then?
So there's a lot to that, Brad. You'll get the load boards were running around to the freight brokerages 5 years ago, promising to sell them like, oh, you can OEM your load board, right? You can have a private load network. Sounds neat, right? Sounds super cool. But you're now, as a brokerage, responsible for pulling drivers into your platform, and that's where drivers are overwhelmed, right? In my past, we used to talk about like app fatigue. Drivers don't want another app. Drivers also don't want another website to go to. What they want is to ingest loads that just match them based on their known history, their preferences, whatever they're filling out in those packets. And that's where I think we're seeing a lot of change behind the scenes. There's companies like Parade, there's companies like Trucker Tools, all these digital freight matching platforms, Cargo Chief, Freight Friend, Neutral. There's a lot of these independent, we'll segment them off as startup or newer companies that are focused on matching available freight transaction to available truck. And then it's a matter of how do you notify? How do you let people know that now is the time that this load is available without it being publicly posted, right? And it's no different than, if we equate things back to how we live our lives, right? If I wanted to know where the best tomato sale was, we used to get the newspaper out, right? And you thumb through all the pages on Wednesdays of the grocery ads to look at all your different grocers and who's pricing what where. Now it's at the point, like if I think the word tomato, the next ad on my phone is tomato, right? Let alone if I say it out loud. But things are moving digital. Things are moving dare I say, predictive, right? We know, we being the industry, we know with some certainty, not everything, with a high degree of certainty, where freight becomes available at what cadence based on shipper behaviors, patterns, and consumer buying. Within that, we can also predict capacity across the landscape fairly accurately. And again, this isn't a silver bullet, one size fits all, 100% of the freight moves this way. But imagine, if we can move, today digital freight matching is probably single digit percentage. Imagine when it gets to be like 25% of all freight shipments, right? These things become predictable and identifiable, and we stop wasting time in the transaction. There's a massive labor savings that goes along with it. The negotiations become shorter because the cycle becomes more efficient.
Powerful. I would love, and Kevin, you had mentioned earlier about the landscape being challenging. I think you had talked about cutthroat. I want to know, what are some of the keys to success in sales? How can we have success in sales in today's environment? I mean, I need to get my boxing gloves out. It sounds like it's a dog-eat-dog world.
It is, like environments like this, when you're in a down cycle, it becomes a race to the bottom. And that's what we call it, rat race to the bottom of pricing, because everyone starts competing on pricing, and someone's always going to undercut you. There's so many freight brokers out there. Someone's always going to undercut you. I mean, it's a given. Now, whether they can actually execute that business or not doesn't really happen all that often, right? So that freight will come back to you, but it's all about competitive advantages. It's all about differentiation. And I've sold a number of different things in my life. Freight to shippers is by far the toughest thing I've ever sold, because as soon as you get off the phone with somebody, no matter what you say, 5 minutes later, another freight broker is going to call them and say the exact same thing. So how do you prove you're different? We can all say we're different. How do you prove it? Because everyone's using the same lines, and technology can help you out with that. But you have to really focus in on what makes you different and be able to prove that on a cold call. Another way to do that is just to call, because you have to be in front of somebody at all times, because it is freight, it is logistics, something's going wrong every day, every minute, and you have to find those people who are ready to make a change because they've been burned one too many times by the people they're using right now. And those are the two key things that I think anyone can pick up and start doing today to make a dent in this market right now.
So you're telling me I need to pick up that 500-pound phone. I need to reach out and touch someone, because who knows when opportunity is knocking. And Brad, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I know of a tool that might be able to assist me with picking up that phone to speak to those people that I want to connect with. Is that right?
You got it. Yep. We make it easy.
You're getting a raise, Larry.
Say that again, Herbert.
You're gonna get a raise.
Yeah. Larry's going to start. If you just look at the right and left hand corner of your screen, you're going to see a small 800 number. If you would just call that number, put LARRY in the prompt, make sure I get my check.
I love it. Mr. Silver, if you could drop some gold on us. I heard Kevin mention the power of relationships, and I met he was a self-proclaimed sales guru out of South Florida, but he shared with me that in his 30 years of selling, the difference between contacts, people that he knew, and contracts, people that he did business with, was that letter R, relationships. Matt, if you don't mind, and then Herbert afterwards, can you talk about the power of those relationships within the industry?
Yeah, I think the relationships genuinely are all that matter. Kevin hit it on the head when he said, like, it's freight, something's gonna go wrong, right? I used to manage a sales team, and Herbert might remember this, but when we were cold calling, it wasn't, here's our differentiators, here's why we're better than everybody else. It was just like, hey, did somebody fail to pick up a load recently? Because we know it happened, right? You're a doc. Something happened, right? Or have you had a freight claim recently? Yeah, we have better insurance, right? Selling to those unique differentiators is important, but ultimately building the relationship, because you're going to fall back on that relationship when it goes wrong and your name is attached to it, your logo is attached to it. Larry, you called out like AI. AI isn't replacing bodies, right? AI is not empathetic. AI is, let me rewind. It might replace some bodies somewhere in manual, repeatable work that will be better suited for a computer. I mentioned we used to have a team on, spreadsheets, building out those pivot tables. That's better served with technology today, right? We don't need somebody doing the same thing 12 times a day, all day long until they burn out and move on. We need technology to assist the people that are building the relationships. So leaning into technology to help make you better decisions, more informed decisions faster, compounding all that data into something you can make a decision from, but then using the bodies, the actual people to build out those relationships, know your customers, like all the little things, right? What's your customers' kids' names? What's their dog's name? When's their anniversary? Did you send them flowers, right? Like if they're food adverse to anything, like don't send them pizza with their least favorite topping on it. Remember that they hate mushrooms and send every pizza without mushrooms, right? Do those little things so when your truck is late, when your driver accidentally clips a curb, knocks a pallet over, whatever happens, you can call in the favor that you need to not be replaced by that notes brokerage who's going to call your customer, promise to be better than you, promise to do it for less money than you are. You don't have to race to the bottom if you're selling service, right? Chick-fil-A doesn't sell the cheapest chicken out there, but they do have the best service, and their line is in the street every day.
Matt, you can't do that, man. You're making me hungry. Whoa, wait. Herbert, what do you have to add?
Yeah, so Matt left me with no room to keep adding. So so I'll just I'll take cover, just a few things, just like Matt was saying right now, you can start pick up the phone and just saying, hey, like, do you have any, did anyone, drop the ball on your low last minute or something like that? But you also have the sales agents who probably have built good relationship with some carriers that are good at, drop trailer operations, or some carriers that are, like dedicated to overnight deliveries. And that might be a very specific service that you might be able to pitch out to a shipper, and I'm gonna like turn over to freight tech, and I feel like selling to 3PLs and to a brokerage, it's different, because I think you need to understand and recognize like the decision makers, and at a shipping company, a logistics manager might have the green light and approval to say, hey, we're going to use you. And at a brokerage, that you're selling like automated services and a software, then you might be looking for, higher up, decision makers and probably more expensive product as well. So I feel like you have to go very detailed about what are they going to be able to deliver, what are they going to be able to accomplish with your product. And I think that this goes back to every sales person out there, and it's like doing your homework, and doing a little research about who you're going to talk to, what they do, and how your services or products can enhance their operations or help them to save some money.
Wow. Herbert, you must be a mind reader, because my next question was, I want that one tip for those sellers that are listening in right now or maybe on the recording. What's your best piece of advice that you have for them to have success in this environment? And Herbert, I appreciate you sharing about doing research, about being prepared, about the little things really being the big things, because I know you're a high-level tennis player. You're logistics and sales savvy. You're self-driven and goal-oriented. You love to cook and passionate about your job, and you're very creative. I did my research. So, if others want to be rocking and rolling like LLJR, What else can they do? Kevin and them that. What do you have to add? Keys to success in this environment.
I think for me, I mean, there is no, a 100% correct answer to this, but for me, it's to stay relevant. Like what do you do to be relevant to your prospect? And I think obviously that comes along with doing your homework, doing some research. But like if you're like prospecting, food and beverages shippers, then if you already have experience with them, like show them, that you're familiar with their, on-time pickups and on-time deliveries. That's a very hectic logistics environment. They like things to be picked up and delivered on time, and if not, they hate it. And then you have like paper and packaging shippers, and manufacturers. And you'll know that you might have some loads of carton box. A lot of carriers, they hate that type of load because, it gets their trailer dirty and all of that good stuff. So be like, hey, you know what? I have some, full of trucking companies that they don't mind, hauling this kind of stuff. So I feel like, just learn how to be relevant to your prospects. That's what I'm going to say.
I love it. I love it. I love it. What you got, Kev?
Herbert said it very well, be relevant, talk their language, right? If you're going into a paper company or food and beverage, talk food and beverage instead of transportation. You have to earn their trust. You have to be an expert at what they do, or at least be knowledgeable, ask great questions about what they do. And then you marry into the transportation at the end. To be relevant right now as well is to stack up the no, not right now, because the market's going to turn. And this is the time to really lay the foundation to be up and running when it does turn up. You have all the pieces in place. You have those relationships that are forming. You might not be getting the business yet, but you're forming those relationships. And as soon as the need arises, they're going to click you on.
I love it. Laying the groundwork, putting in that work right now to be ready on the upswing. And Matt, I know it's tough being an Arizona State Sun Devil fan. Woo, yeah, I did my research as well. But what tip do you have for us in terms of keys to success? That biggest key to having success.
Yeah, right now I think these guys hit it right. You want to stay in contact, get the no up front. We know it's coming, right? Just get it. Right. And then work through it. But be persistent. One of the things I always tell sales reps is just shut up. Right. Ask the question and then shut up and listen. Right. Your sales prospect is going to tell you everything they need to hear back from you, all the validation points to get the sale. Just ask them for their pain points. Ask them why the last provider failed. Ask them what they don't like about who they're doing business with today. Don't badmouth your competition. Right? Be friendly about it. Be open to criticism, even about your own operation. But listen to them. Actually hear them, parrot back some of what they're saying, and be ready, because it is going to come around. That sale always comes back around, and they might test the waters with you with asking your opinion about somebody or something, right? Just to see, are you of integrity? Are you able to service what they're going to be pushing for or projecting for next year? Be ready for it.
Matt, what are some of the strategies for like selling SaaS, freight tech? What would you say it has worked pretty well for you, this year?
Stand out.
I'm really impressed.
Yeah, freight tech is interesting because we do sell as SaaS, right? We're a monthly subscription, flat rate to any of our customers. The biggest objection, just candidly with you guys, that our team comes up against is like, wow, this is super great, we love it, it's not in the budget, right? And that's the first no we're always going to get. And be mindful and respectful of it. Like, yeah, of course, we're asking you for money you don't have in a down market. I get it. But one of the things we've done incredibly well, especially call it the beginning of the freight conference season, spring of 23, our team has stood out, and we've stood out a number of ways. One is we physically stand out. We wear Hawaiian shirts in public settings. This is more than just a lifestyle. This is like the most muted thing I own for these settings. But we make sure everybody in the room knows who we are and why we're there and what we do. That is it, right? we will never be in a room around our prospects where they don't know who we are and what we're capable of doing from a technology standpoint. We continue to educate, right? We take a very consultative approach. Like, I respect that you don't have the budget, but what you also don't have is the ability to waste money on tools that don't get you to the finish line, right? And every freight brokerage is burning cash on a bunch of tools that they signed up for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years ago. They're stuck in a contract, and those tools are not helping them evolve with this industry as things change. They're losing business to their competitors because they're all using the same pricing tools, right? And we're highlighting, here's what we're doing different. You're not pricing freight that moved last week. Why are you using tools that tell you what the price of freight was last week? You're moving freight and you're bidding on freight that tomorrow into the future. So you need something that matches your customer demand, and we'll be here when you're ready for it.
So
Now,
Matt,
would somebody typically have a line item in their budget for pricing tools? I mean, is that something? So when you come in, you're actually coming into a budget, right? You're not selling something that they don't have a budget because they didn't know it existed, right?
Whether they have it on the line item as a pricing tool or not, some companies absolutely do. Some companies even have pricing teams, right? So they have labor spend on top of technology assigned to it. A lot of freight brokerages, especially like that SMB market, call it 100 million or so in annual revenue, they may not know that they already have it in their budget, because for the legacy tools that exist, whether it's from, I don't necessarily want to name names, but there's some load boards that have pricing tools. Those pricing tools are add-ons to existing subscriptions for another service. So they got into pricing tools by means of, hey, I was using a load board to list my freight and advertise it out. Then I got upsold by that company for their pricing index. Now I'm paying for the pricing index from 2 or 3 different sources. But again, it's indexes, right? Indexes are awesome. I know exactly what happened with all of the stocks I invested in the last year, week, month, whatever. That's killer. I love that. It just shows me what has happened. It doesn't tell me what's going to happen. If I could invest on that knowledge, I would not be sitting here, right? I'd actually be having this real view behind me, sitting in the mountains, enjoying life, because I would know what stocks are going to trade at or what a truck is going to cost tomorrow.
Wow. Herbert, I appreciate you asking that great question. As Matt said, sometimes I gotta listen. Hey, Brad, what's on your mind? What other questions do you have?
Well, one of my questions is, it's probably a Matt, and I guess it's for all three of you guys. I mean, do you guys envision with the rise of AI, do you envision a world where the 3PL and the broker have their own bots and they're working out their own conversations amongst the two without a person?
Herbert, I'm going to let you kick this off because I feel like I'm probably the most relevant recent information around it.
Yeah, I'm going to pass it along to Kevin first.
So why does nobody want to answer this question?
I don't think so, unless maybe there's automated trucks, right? Driverless trucks. The human element of the driver, fleets have driver managers for a reason. Freight brokers work with drivers for a reason, and logistics, as we all know from history and time immemorial, there's problems. There's lots of problems. There's unforeseen problems. We all have our horror stories about that. And with the fraud, that layers on some more. But, have you ever had a driver who's, going cross country for you, end up in jail in the weekend? And that's the reason why the load's late. You just have to have people with those situations. I have had that situation before. I mean, the cops get called, good things happen, bad things happen, accidents happen. So I think for a certain amount of freight that is very vanilla and very easy, you can maybe do that. And I think that's where the digital freight matching is basically at. But for a lot of it, there's, the exception is the rule in logistics, because there's always going to be an exception. And we always had on the brokerage floor, we always had this saying, either I'm going to screw it up, the truck's going to screw it up or the customer's going to screw it up, but something's going to get screwed up by the time the truck picks up at A and delivers in B. Something's going to go wrong that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, well, I think that, so as we were talking about selling, one of the things that I think, Matt, you kind of alluded to, or you maybe kind of directly talked about, giving having your sales guys ask a question and be quiet. One of my favorite quotes is by Billy Durant's, the founder of General Motors. He doesn't we typically think about Henry Ford. We don't think about Billy Durant, but he was successful in his own right. He also founded Frigidaire, which is interesting. But one of the statements that he said about selling was that sellers need to give the buyer a chance to make their own decision. And so he talked a lot about, hey, asking the question and being quiet and letting the buyer get comfortable with really essentially selling themselves. One of the things that I think as we talk through this, and there's a lot of, with AI, I spend a lot of time thinking about what the future of selling is going to look like. Are we going to be sold to bots? One of the hurdles that I have is, bots can't really be empathetic, even though we spend a lot of time, AI is a significant piece of our business model and a significant piece of where I put a lot of my energy. Bots can't daydream. They don't have the ability to forward think and they we can teach them to be empathetic to some level. But it's a taught empathy, right? So I think my question kind of when you guys think about the selling environment in the PL, do you think there's gonna, what I hear you guys alluding to is, hey, there's always going to be this need for some kind of empathetic decision making. And do you think that that'll continue to be the case?
I think 100% yes. And, not to punt your last question about it, but the reality of it is there's already bot activity in freight. It's just implemented differently. It's not driver to broker negotiation bots. There's some of that, right? That's just rules exception. It's if then statements. I don't think, while technically it falls in the umbrella of AI, it's not AI as we think about it, like Skynet, right? The robots coming down the street doing our jobs, right? And that's, I think, also maybe where the conversation starts is AI is this broad spectrum, everything between a crappy phone tree and true decision making, independent thought, machine learning level, generative AI, and there's a lot in between there, right? So there are brokerages using elements of AI around pricing rules to go out and bid, right? They're going to bid boards. They're getting thousands of at-bats with potential customers before their competitors pick up the phone. And that's a good use of it, right? There's some elements, right? Kodiak, I think, is doing a great job down in Texas of doing some automation via driver or driving. Depot to depot as opposed to dock, right? They're segmenting out the long haul portion, and under the right rules, that can be mitigated with it. And so there's going to be pieces that go the way of, let's just call it technology, like we always have, right? This is just scary because you can go to ChatGPT and ask these crazy questions about whatever and get answers. That's just a better implementation of research technology, right? That's the AI a lot of people lens it through. I don't think AI is going to pick up the phone and call all your prospects and manage to navigate phone trees to a decision maker who is motivated by something we can't describe today, right? Their motivation might be to hit their end of quarter number, and through conversation you'll learn that. But if you just have a scripted bot go through, right, it's if then statements. It's going to try to navigate the waters as best as possible. It may not get to the empathetic results that we're all looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
I think about selling, and I don't know who coined this, but selling is the transition of passion. I think that ultimately, particularly in a B2B environment, that's essentially what you're doing, right? You're exchanging your passion onto somebody else. And I don't know that we're anytime soon. I don't know that that's, how does we're definitely going to see technology continue to further itself in the sales process.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to replace the ability to transition or transfer passion.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to that, and I was gonna say something like that. I mean, for us, this year, we have an increase of requests for SDRs and BDRs, and I think when I see our SDRs of 5 years ago and the ones from 3 months ago, all this technology and AI and all these tools, they're helping them be better sales agents, be better at their job. I mean, they are connecting with more prospects. They can, like pitch their sales pitch a lot better, and they can, come up with quicker answers for them. So I think that, just kind of like what Matt was saying, I feel like I don't see a next year, 2 years, or 5 years where there's not going to be someone, pounding the phone or sending emails, but there's going to be more technology available that will help that person become more successful and do a better job at sales.
Yeah, Brad, I like the passion of passion, because that's what it is. And I think we're emotional creatures. We make decisions based on emotions and not rationality. We make the emotional decision of buying or whatever else, and then we rationalize it afterwards, right? And I don't see how AI can really replace that, because we're just emotional creatures.
100%.
Oh, so true. Y'all have been absolutely great. Now, before we wrap up, we want to make sure we get you out of here on time. And we have gone to the top of the hill, Kevin Hill. We have been given the gems of gold and matte silver, and smooth and cool as sherbet. Thank you, Herbert. But essentially, tomorrow is Thanksgiving. Yeah, you see what I did there, but boom. I've got to ask, 30 seconds each. What are you thankful for? We'll start with you, Matt. We'll go to Herbert, Kevin, and then Brad. What are you thankful for? You got 30 seconds.
I love it. First off, thank you for having us on. But I'm thankful for this industry, man. This has been the ride of a lifetime. I didn't think I came to freight as a career, right? It was a job when I started, and it has turned into some of the most fun I've ever had. I keep referencing Herbert, but we've known each other for like 12 years now. And we keep bumping into each other. Kevin and I have been tripping over each other's feet at various brands over the years, and I'm fortunate that I get to spend quite a bit of my time on the road at conferences, kissing babies, shaking hands, doing all that thing. But I continuously come up against and see more people in this industry that have built incredible companies and have realized success because we've all decided to make this industry better. And I'm super thankful for that. I love it.
I love to hear that. Herbert, what are you thankful for?
Well, I think same as Matt, I didn't start in logistics for, thinking about a career, but more like a job. And then, literally then soon after that, you find out how everything moves around, and you're like, wow, there's a lot going on behind the scene for you to have something at your house. And then, you see all these trucks around on the freeway, on the highways, and you're like, there's a low broker behind it, and there's a sales agent, and there's a dispatcher and a truck driver, and all of that is like, it's like pure magic, like seriously, like there's no one party that has 100% of control of everything. There's just, many people in this like chain, and other than that, I mean, we all know that logistics and transportation is a hectic environment. So when I see that Kevin, that know him for so long, and Matt, over a decade now, and that they're still in logistics, it's pretty impressive, because a lot of people, might want to leave the industry and be like, this is enough. Like, it was fun, it was good, I met good people, but I'm out of here. And, to see people that's been in this industry for 10, 20, 30 years, I always have respect for them.
Oh, I love it. Kevin, what you got?
Echoing Matt and Herbert, we used to have a saying at FreightWaves, you don't choose transportation. Transportation chooses you, and then it will never let you go. So I It's been great. I came in as a job, and it's turned into a great career and wonderful people that the relationships that we've all made and we keep making is special, and that's what I'm thankful for.
Oh, I appreciate it, Brad.
I'm thankful for just a great team, great product, and great relationships that have been built over the years. This is around the time, a little over 11 years ago, that Monster Connect got started, and kind of a tumultuous time in my life. So I'm always very reflective, just how far I've come, and just have been really great friends over the years.
I love it. I love it. I want to tell y'all I'm thankful for each and every one of you for joining us as esteemed guests. Thank you, Brad and Monster Connect. Thank you to those, our viewers, our listeners, for supporting us and supporting this industry. We're in the business of relationships, and we appreciate that relationship that we all have. I wish each and every one of you a safe, a happy, a thankful Thanksgiving, and we look forward to you joining us next Wednesday, November the 29th, same bat place, same bat time. Let's give a warm round of applause to Matt Silver, Herbert Orlano, Kevin Hill, and Brad Seaman for being our guests today, dropping so much knowledge. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We wish you all the best, continued success, keep shining, and we'll see you on the flip side. Bye for now.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Take care now. Happy Thanksgiving.